So if people point out mistakes within me, or even if I get triggered from something, I look within and look, what do they mean? What can I do better next time? What is my intention? The mind also is a problem-solving machine. Whatever question you ask yourself, the question kind of needs to be answered because it is my choice how I want to feel. Does not mean that I have no ups and no downs. As soon as we become aware of something, we have the choice. God gave us the choice, and now it's up to us. What am I making out of the power that is given to me? Oh, it's a very deep question.
Delay is also a choice. That's a choice you make. You delay.
Love your stress and love your challenges because they make you a better person.
Okay, everyone, welcome. This is Love Your Stress podcast, and today we have fellow coach Jarne. And let's dive into the conversation with a quite simple but powerful question. Jarne, most of the audience probably doesn't know you, so instead of asking who you are, what you're doing, I prefer asking, how do you want to be known?
I want to be known as someone you can trust, and someone you can relate to.
Sounds good. And just a bit more specific, is there, I usually use this follow-up question, is there anything specific you want to be known for? So you want to be known as someone you can trust, but do you want to have like a specific niche or specific area or some achievement or anything that comes to your mind that you want to be known for?
Yeah, empowering people, empowering fellow human beings, to empower them to become their best, to really help them on their journey of self-discovery and helping them believing in themselves as I believe in myself.
Sounds great. And let's dive into the main topic, which is stress. And before we start, I always love to ask the first question so we get on the same page. How would you define stress in your own words? Because if we're not in agreement what stress is, we can talk for half an hour and then realize that, wait, what I mean by stress, you mean completely different things. So if you had to define the word stress, how you define it?
Great question. It can really be you awake a thought process in my mind that has not really been happening too much, in terms of everyone kind of perceives stress differently, individually. So I really like the question. I would define stress as a circumstance that really is challenging us to deliver the best possible way, the way we show up authentically. So stress, in my opinion, comes always with a challenge to step up.
I really love your definition that stress is a challenge to show up authentically, because I've been doing these podcasts. I think there are at least 20 of them. And each time I ask this question, person gives a slightly different and sometimes even a completely different answer. And I think this is one of the first times someone relates it to showing up authentically. Would you like to expand? What does it mean for you to show up authentically?
To show up authentically, it doesn't mean for me to really trust in my own abilities, but also trust in whatever outcome might happen, or whatever outcome the result is or is going to be, is exactly the way it should be. So really trusting. Some people like to use the word surrender. Yeah, it's really having trust and faith within oneself.
Yeah, I hear something really beautiful in your definition, because as you define it as trust in self, ability, trust in universe, however you want to define it, I can already see that by trusting yourself, trusting universe, God, whoever you believe in, it kind of relieves you from all the stress, all the overthinking, all the problems, because if you kind of trust yourself, then There's no need to worry about, is it?
Definitely. And it goes kind of even further than that. I totally agree with what you're saying. It is about the choices we make that lead us down the current path or up a current path, however we want to define it. If I look back now towards the now where I'm at, every choice I made led me to this particular conversation I have with you right now. So, and everything was aligned perfectly, everything makes sense. It's a very interesting concept.
Yeah, I also really resonate with Power of Now, especially Eckhart Tolle, about being present. One of my mantras is be present. And I believe that's, if truly embodied, solves all the problems. Because if you're truly present in the now, you realize that you actually become aware of all the thinking patterns. And as some guest of mine said, that the mind is a problem making machine. And when you're kind of creating those problems in your mind, you mentioned that everything is perfect. In those moments, everything does not seem to be perfect. So, and as you mentioned, that being in the now feels like everything is aligned, everything is perfect. However, not everyone is in this state of mind. Not everyone resonates it. And do you have any tips or advice for people who feel like they're present, but they don't feel that they're in a perfect moment? How to get there?
I would say I come back to that question when you say the mind is a, how was the exact word? So the mind also is a problem solving machine. Whatever question you ask yourself, the question kind of needs to be answered. So it really is about what questions am I asking myself? And to be present starts, I believe, with practicing self love. Because when I can be with myself, I'm pretty good, you know? I mean, when I'm bored, when I'm stressed, when I'm with myself, I should question my company, you know? So I believe we should always be good with being alone and being with ourselves. I think I'm in great company when I'm alone. I really think I am, yeah.
That's a beautifully said, that you feel like you're great company when you're with yourself. And that's another pattern I've seen in many of my clients and many people around the world, is that most people, or not most, but quite a few people, they try to escape from themselves, try to distract, put on radio, put on music, find distraction, get into a relationship. And it's all good and fine as long as it doesn't serve as a crutch. That's what I believe in. As long as you, it's okay as a stress management tool to find a friend to talk to, find a dog or a pet, just to um, have your attention externally, or have that music that uplifts you. However, at some point, if it becomes an escape, then it doesn't really serve you. Do you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, so if I look at stress or pressure or whatsoever, this is always related to the outer world. You know, this is the external. And when I go within, there should not be any pressure felt. And focusing on external things, you know, having those conversations in our mind with those things is fine. But is it necessary? An example, if I try to, like, if I complain in my mind about someone else's actions, I mean, I cannot change what they do. Also, if I'm not if I would do it differently. But why should I feel bad, any emotion, any feeling I don't like, just because of another person? No, like this is them. This is not me. What they do is up to them. I cannot control them. I can control how I feel about it. So I choose to let go of what I don't know. I let go of assuming things about people, about situations, about circumstances, and bring it back to the here and now, and look that the actions I take make me feel good.
Well, I really loved it how you expanded on this topic, and it gave me so many directions where I could dive deeper. And I think I'm going to go with the most hardest question, most trickiest question, because you said that when you're looking inward, there should be no pressure felt. And but what if there is pressure? What do you do then? Are you saying that this feeling is not valid?
Yeah, feeling into it is important. That we take a moment and breathing into anything that comes up and asking ourselves, why am I feeling that way? As I said earlier, every question needs to be answered.
Mm.
Not assuming things, not really, I don't like assuming. I know, how I feel, or I even don't know. Both sides are fine. I need to deal with them as they are. But being connected rather than disconnected to our body, being present is also being in the body, to feel what is felt and to dive into those feelings rather than running away from them. And if I go inward and my lower back has a sign for me, I don't know if I feel maybe my hip is a bit tense and I sit and there's something going on. Yeah. Feeling into it, feeling, breathing, and then releasing at the end of reach the point of acceptance.
So you said feel, breathe, release, and you said acceptance. Um, what do you think is the correlation between acceptance and release? Who comes first? If it's a chicken and egg problem, who would come first?
Sorry, ask the question again.
So, from what you said, it sounded like there's a connection between release and acceptance.
Yeah.
And I like to make the question a bit more difficult for you. If it was a chicken and egg problem, who comes first, release or acceptance?
Acceptance and then release. Feeling what needs to be felt, accepting those feelings that are there, and then the release happens, like the relaxation, the acceptance. Like the relaxation comes with acceptance, I'd say. If I stop accepting it again, it can come back as well.
Another topic you mentioned before was complaining, and that reminded me of there was a really beautiful example. I was listening to some audio from YouTube, and the idea was that a woman came to a coach and complained about relationships with a colleague. So basically, the colleague was always arguing with her. And with a deeper investigation, it turned out that the woman was arguing with this colleague mentally herself without expressing it. And the solution in this case was for the woman to stop arguing with this person mentally. And suddenly the colleague also stopped arguing with her. And it kind of links me to the complaining because quite a few of us like to complain, and we become kind of in this toxic environment of everyone complains and encourages us to complain, and then we pick up the habit of complaining externally, and then we start complaining internally, and it leads in all kinds of places we usually don't want to get to. And the question to you is, how do you manage complaining in your own personal experience?
There are certain situations in life I like, and some situations I don't like.
Mm-hmm.
But it is very, very rare that I can change anything on it other than my perception of it. So having always the end goal in mind of feeling in peace and feeling now being in that state of presence and balance with my emotions, I came to a point where I don't want to complain. It's very, very rare that I find myself in situations that I'm still complaining. Oh, I'm far from perfect. We all have human stuff going on. But every time when I find myself in a situation where I start complaining, and I'm like, wait a second, kind of laugh about myself because it's just nonsense in my personal opinion to complain about things, because it is my choice how I want to feel. Does not mean that I have no ups and no downs, that I feel super great and energized and light, and then there are some other days where I feel a bit powerless, but I take it as it comes. And there's the acceptance again. Acceptance is really a big one, you know, accepting whatever comes my way and trusting that everything that is happening now is happening for my ultimate good. Being in that state, being really aware of those things, all the complaints, all the stress is just washing away.
Yeah, that sounds very beautiful. And when you mentioned that at some point you really didn't want to complain, uh, I have experienced similar pattern in my life when I see a behavior. I don't remember a specific example at the moment, but the idea is I see a pattern, let's say it's complaining, and I complain, and then I don't complain for a while. And then when the situation comes again where I would have complained before, suddenly something has shifted inside of me, and I don't feel like complaining anymore. And that's easier to notice on externally when when I'm talking to you, when someone else, with a friend, family, and it's kind of easy to notice that pattern of complaining, like you voice it out, and you see how you feel how you feel, you see how other person responds, and catching yourself complaining externally is reasonably easy. However, what I've noticed is that quite often I fail to catch myself complaining internally in my own mind. And especially when I'm in areas of my life when I don't feel like being enough or competent enough. Um, in those areas, I would notice more complaining internally than other areas. Like, for example, I'm practicing a lot of yoga, I'm really healthy and fit, and I wouldn't complain about myself internally about my fitness because I feel like I'm doing really well here. So there's not much seed for actually complaining. Or in other parts of life, like relationships, where I don't feel that competent, I might notice myself observing mental chatter, which doesn't make me feel that good. Do you notice similar patterns in your life as well?
Yeah, definitely. And I believe on a collective scale, we are all dealing with those things. Is really what are we making out of it as soon as we become aware of those things. Now we're all
Mhm.
feeling the same emotions. Now the words we're using, they might differentiate, or different ways how we handle things, and that all is totally fine. But if it comes back to the self, in my opinion, we all should find a way for ourselves as individual to learn to deal with everything that comes our way internally, so we really are in peace with that. Now, as soon as we become aware of something, we we have the choice. Now, a choice. We're coming to a crossroad, basically. And which way am I going? I like to say God gave us the choice, and now it's up to us. What am I making out of the power that is given to me? Well, it's a very deep question. I choose to become the best I can possibly be. Now, seeing my mistakes, learning when people have to, if people point out mistakes within me, or even if I get triggered from something, I look within and look, what do they mean? What can I do better next time? What is my intention?
I really loved how you connected awareness to the choice. So the first comes awareness of something. Is it a pattern you see? Is a thought? Do you like it? Do you don't like it? There's judgment. And once you have that awareness, then you have a choice. And that reminded me of something else that I was listening a couple of days ago. And that's capacity versus capability, and understanding between those two. An idea is that we all have infinite potential. We could do whatever we want. We could achieve whatever we want. However, we might have a limited capacity. We have limited time. We have limited skills, attention, and habits, and all so forth. And that kind of led me into thinking that yes, we have a choice, but yes, we have awareness. Yes, we have infinite potential, but it's also limited. And it's limited by the choices we make. And choices we make define our capacity, define what we're capable of at a specific moment, and where are we investing. And I know that for many people, making choices can be a really stressful thing. Like, okay, you become aware, and now you know you have faced with the choice. And now the problem comes which choice to make, which direction. And then people often would procrastinate or delay the making of a choice. And delay is also a choice. That's a choice you make, you delay. And basically, the question I would love to ask you, and of course my audience, how do you make that choice? What guides you?
I give my best to be guided by the small, soft, and gentle voice within myself, which who always knows the answer, which always leads me down a path I really, really need to go down, rather than the loud voice that is, yeah, kind of playing a bit of a different game. Sometimes a
Mhm.
stressful game.
Mhm.
And again, awareness of which voice is helping me and which voice keeps me stuck. So, how do I make this choice? It's about, again, the feeling Some people say the gut feeling, the intuition, and yeah, the heart, really the heart is a key factor in that. So the choice that I know I can go to bed and I can be happy with what I've done the day, the choices I made. Now, if there was something I did not like, because I mean I'm a human and I am making mistakes, then I forgive me and I forgive everyone who've done wrong to me too, if I perceive that as that. Really, the choice comes also again from within. There should not be, it should feel right. More a feeling than a thought, though, definitely.
It was interesting answer. You kind of implied that there's more than one voice, and there might be some people who are not aware of the fact that there might be more than one. Actually, that there is a voice in your head in the first place, and that reminds me there was this Vishen Lakiani. He was making a presentation and referring to a similar idea and saying that there's the voice that says there is no voice, and if you haven't noticed that voice, then the voice that says there is no voice is that voice, kind of referring back to it. And yeah, that's kind of interesting topic for those of people, for those of listeners who have not paid attention to the different modalities, different, as you said, the loudness, emotions attached. Because I've noticed also like there are kind of ideas going in and out of the mind, and there's usually a feeling attached to idea. There's usually, I wouldn't say loudness, but intensity. I would rather use in word intensity
Mm.
attached to the voice, which could be perceived also as loudness or any other sense for that matter. And in your answer, you mentioned that in your case, you choose to listen to the more quiet and more soft voice. And from that comes out two questions. Why that soft and quiet voice? And if you do choose to follow that voice, how do you hear it over the loud one that's kind of like in front and kind of masking the other one? It's like being in a train station and having so much noises and having a friend across the room, which you probably can't even hear. So how do you tune into that voice, which is probably you can even not hear it? In case of this train station example, you have this friend talking to you on the other side of the room, and you actually cannot hear it. You maybe see the friend waving, but there's no sound coming through. So I would love for you to explore these two questions.
I answer and then you let me know if I answered it. Whilst you were saying this, I felt this sensation in the upper head area, crown kind of base, where the information comes in. So it definitely has to do with practice and or like the practice of being aware of our feelings, our emotional state, and the acceptance of whatever we feel, and to really being detached to everything that happens externally of us. So in terms of the choices, now if there are other people involved into me making that choice, there could be a voice talking to me that is also attached to their needs and their wants right now, but they have not necessarily something mean with if it feels right for me. When I come back and I truly truly listen to that voice. What I prefer to say, what that voice is the voice of my higher self. Now, the voice that always gives me peace with whatever happens. And there's then the other voice that is more ego driven, more materialistic thinking. No stressing of, oh, I need to control the outcome. I need to know what the outcome is. But that's not really necessary for us to know what is happening next. We just need to be prepared of whatever might happen. No, so how am I prepared of what is happening next is, again, trusting that the choice I make feels good and feels light and gives me, I don't know, sometimes goosebumps, sometimes just warmth around my chest. Now, some might feel excited. And now we're coming to an interesting thing. I listened to a podcast or like an audiobook from Brené Brown, and she compares the book called The Atlas of the Heart. She compares the feeling of excitement with the feeling of anxiety. Very, very interesting. Now, the feelings are very similar. I started becoming more aware of that as well myself. So next time I feel anxious about something, because that might be something I have not done before, something I need to lean towards to become better, to step up the game. It can also be the excitement of, oh wow, what is on the other side? I don't know, but I trust the process, and I lean into it and I go towards that. To come back to the voice, we see this topic is very, I mean, you named it earlier, we can really go in so many directions with that. To come back to the voice, the more aligned we are with our own personal truth, whatever it might be for us as individual, the more aligned we are to who we actually are. And again, whoever you think you are, then just you knows, just you know the answer for yourself. The more we are aligned to that, the softer and the more gentle this voice becomes, the more we are capable of listening to that. The voices, they differentiate as well depending on my own frequency. If I vibrate on love and gratitude, there are positive thoughts coming in. If I vibrate on shame, guilt, anger, because I feel like that right now, then negative thoughts coming in, low frequencies. Am I allowing, through the choice of feeling those things, am I allowing these frequencies into my being, into my system? So it really depends also on our current state and the emotions we have within currently. Like the voices really differentiate.
That was an interesting answer, and I saw quite a wide spectrum of patterns leading to my understanding of your answer. And I'm curious what you think about how I heard it. So you mentioned that we're kind of receptors of all kinds of ideas, and what kind of ideas we receive depends on what kind of frequency vibration we are. You mentioned love and gratitude will give us positive thoughts, so that's all fine. So uh, then the question comes, how do we keep that positive state so we receive those positive thoughts? And earlier on in our conversation, we were talking about mind being either a problem solver or problem creator. And we kind of agreed that we can shift between problem solver and problem creator by being aware of kind of questions we ask. And how I heard what you said is that by asking, let's say, positive questions, by being aware of what kind of questions we ask, we can influence what we feel and guide ourselves into the attunement with the positive frequencies. And before you also mentioned part of alignment and ego. And isn't ego part of ourselves? Like you said that is the voice coming out of a higher self or ego or somewhere else? And isn't ego also part of ourselves? So shouldn't we use it to actually guide us towards the higher self? Isn't it part of actually becoming in alignment? And how I see it is, yeah, everything is the same. So why don't we guide our ego with the positive questions towards where we want to actually go? So that's how I see it, is by
I like
using the
that.
power of questions, we guide ourselves to where we want. We align ourselves to whatever we choose to be aligned with. Is it love, gratitude, curiosity, excitement, anxiety? We have a choice, but have we actually asked what do we want to be aligned with?
Definitely, it's I like the way you think. It's, guiding the voice of the ego, bringing this voice and the other voice in alignment too. Let two become one. Telling the ego is like this protective, this protecting organism, basically. I mean, it's part of our being in some ways. Now we need to live with it, but we need to make clear to it, and we need to tell it that it is fine. Now, when the ego comes into game with the age around 6, 7, it kind of learns to protect, or it develops a protective, or like a protective, how do I say, a way, or it develops a way to protect us. And because as children we kind of re-experiencing those traumas, and there's horrible stuff going on in this world, and it kind of wants the best for us too. So it's a very, very interesting concept. Later, though, when we grow up and we're becoming adults, and we found out ways for ourselves, we have again the choice to develop trust, because we see that if I make this choice now, it leads me that path. If I make the choice here, it leads me down that path. Sometimes as children, there's a limited amount on opportunities. Now we kind of in this little body, innocent, and looking for love, looking for attention, looking for all of those things. And this is how our character is built up then. When we're adults and we're going out in a big world, we see some ways how we interacted in our childhood do not really work anymore in the real world. It's quite tough. And there's still this protective organism, like, oh, I don't want to be hurted again. I don't want to feel this pain anymore. And every time a similar situation comes in, or we're in front of a problem, we choose, usually, if we haven't worked on us yet, we choose the path or to deal with a certain thing as we dealt with it in our childhood. Some people doing the same mistakes, therefore, again and again and again and again, and complaining about things. But at the end of the day, they are not changing the way they act. So they attract the same things again and again, the same problems arising. Focusing on the problem rather than focusing on what can I do different this time? How can I respond now that I wasn't able to respond as a child because no one told me? Just all right, it is fine. I mean, but now as adults, we rely on learning, making different choices, contemplating about our actions and behaviors. It's very, very important that we are not making the same mistakes again when we see that it's not working a certain way. To bring it back to my own life, that as soon as I become aware of a pattern is repeating in my life, I think like, oh, wait a second. I actually don't want this anymore. So I make a choice to step out. First, I observe and I contemplate and I'm like, okay, I try it that way. Okay, this did not work out, but that way. Oh yeah, this is a bit better. I tweak around a bit more, and then I come to a point where it feels right, where the decision I make just feels good, rather than the insecurity, the doubt. But I kind of need to try out. I need to risk certain things in life, to learn and to grow.
Yeah, I love how you said to make decision that feels good. And that brings to my next question from an interesting angle. So my next question is, the title of the podcast is Love Your Stress. What do you make of it? Because from one side you said you want to feel good, but the other side you were also talking about mm, getting out of the comfort zone. So yeah, love your stress. What do you make of it?
Love your stress, yeah. Love your stress and love your challenges because they make you a better person. Now, when you asked me at the beginning, my definition of stress, I came with the challenge, the aspect of the challenge. It comes back towards that, in my opinion, right now, that yeah, it is a challenge, and I love to conquer everything I see. If I really, if there's something curious about it, okay, let's go there. Let's lean into it. Let's explore. I'm an explorer. I love to explore new things. This is how I grow. This is how I learn. This is sometimes uncomfortable, but it is about becoming okay with being uncomfortable and maybe even going with more and more ease every time it becomes a bit uncomfortable. Is it really uncomfortable or is it just unknown? You know, again, a matter of perception, of the perspective. And I love to challenge myself because I'd love to be better than I have been yesterday, or maybe even an hour ago. And I think that's my answer for this one.
I really loved how you answered my question from the specific angle I tried to approach it. And what I heard is that yes, we have stress, we have challenges, and yes, we do want to feel good and make ourselves feel good about the choices we make. At the same time, we also want to grow, we also want to explore, and we also want to have adventures. And quite often, those adventures are on other side of unknown. So I love how you kind of gave this answer that whenever something feels maybe uncomfortable, maybe it's a good time to question, does it actually feel uncomfortable or just unknown? So I think that's a really powerful question to ask at any point when you have to make a choice or make a decision, and just to bring that awareness in there. Yeah, doesn't feel good, but what does it feel like? Does it feel uncomfortable or not? Does it feel like challenging or does it feel like feeling? How does it feel like? And on that note, I'd love to wrap up the podcast and ask you, what would be the one thing that you feel like was the most important we touched upon during the last during this podcast? Like one thing that touched you the most, basically what you want to take away for yourself.
It really is the end, what you just mentioned right now too, that the unknown. Now, what is on the other side? I used the word the other side earlier already, which is for me kind of the unknown, the thing I have not explored yet. And it's kind of an excitement within me that is going towards that direction. And all I know is that I want to know more, that I want to learn more, and that I want to grow more. So, yeah, tapping into the unknown and letting it all happen, letting it all coming my way, and trusting the progress and the process.
There's two more questions I would love to ask you as we close this session out. And one of them, first of them is quite simple. So, do you have anyone you would love to recommend me to reach out for your next podcast episode? And usually, I love for people to encourage to voice out the first name that comes to your mind. Otherwise, you can also keep it yourself and put it message me privately. So, is there anything that comes to you?
Yeah, Sandy Diaz. Something in my mind says Sandy Diaz. I had a beautiful conversation with her and a very long conversation too. And yeah, she's very knowledgeable in terms of communication. And communication also has to do a lot with the choices we make, the words we choose, basically, our body language and all those things. And what was or did you ask the second question already?
So thank you for the recommendation. I think it's a pretty good recommendation. I haven't invited her to the podcast yet, but I'm definitely gonna reach out. And the final question is, Jan, who do you work with, and who are the people you want to reach out to, and what's the best way to do that?
I really target entrepreneur to really know so they can go out and really can make a difference. But I also don't say no to anyone who comes my way. I'm really passionate about helping people on purpose. And when there's something within that drives them, please always feel free to reach out. And I'm really happy to able to be a part of their journey.
Now, what's the best way to reach out to you? What's the best way to contact you?
Yeah, the best way to reach out is on LinkedIn, I'd say. LinkedIn is the easiest and most convenient way.
Okay, Jan, thank you so much for this lovely conversation. Really enjoyed it. And yeah, have a magical day
Yeah, thanks
and
for
see you.
having me. Thank you.